I've known Shireen for about 4 or 5 years now, and have always admired her generosity. She is part of our entrepreneur community, online and offline. She turns up to a lot of the different events and is quite frequently accosted in the corner of a room by someone running multiple brand names by her and seeing which one she thinks is the best from a legal standpoint, and she's always seems to have a smile on her face doing so. On our online community, you'll find Shireen chiming in on discussions, sharing insights, always generously, and really helping people to make better decisions with their business. I'm absolutely thrilled she's written this book. A bit about Shireen. Over the last 10 years, she's not only been a great intellectual property lawyer, but she's been a very successful businesswoman. She started from scratch and has built a very successful London-based IP law firm. She's been able to grow that into a brand in its own right, and has become a go-to personality and a go-to brand within the intellectual property field. Some of the biggest heavyweight names in the world of intellectual property were at the last book launch, speaking and endorsing her as an expert in the field, and not just an expert within the field of people who are already experts, but an expert in the eyes of people who are just out there building their own businesses. So one of the things that Shireen has as a great asset is the ability to talk the talk with the experts, but also to really connect with people who are out who don't understand the law and who are approaching the law maybe with a little bit of trepidation. So a powerful businesswoman meets one of the world's best intellectual property lawyers, and I give you Shireen Smith.
Thank you, Daniel. It was actually thanks to joining Daniel's KPI program that I became more involved in the business community, and as a result noticed that a lot of startup books and MBA programs barely touch on IP law, which is really surprising because IP is so important to any ambitious business. So I decided to write this book. Essentially, there's been a quiet revolution. The internet now dominates our lives. So it's, our knowledge, our brands, our systems, the websites we have that underpin our businesses. And these are all intangibles that are governed by intellectual property. So intellectual property is an umbrella term that takes in a number of laws relating to patents, trademarks, copyright, designs, confidentiality, and more. So one aspect of these laws is to determine ownership rights in intangibles like names, logos, websites, software, music, photos, and the like. The law can sometimes be a minefield, though, so that it's surprising. The person you assume is going to be the owner is not necessarily the owner, which is why it's important to take IP advice on board early on. So the right IP action for a business will depend on its business model. There is no one-size-fits-all. If you don't take IP into account, at best, you might end up with a business that's worth less than it might otherwise have been if you succeed. And at worst, it could actually result in business failure. So take IP on board so that you can position your business to be of maximum value should you succeed, and also to minimize IP disasters, the chance of an IP disaster. So what you don't want is to have the equivalent of a hole in the bucket of your business, whereby you're losing value all the time. This could be down to something like a poor choice of name. So what's not generally appreciated about names is that the choice itself is an intellectual property issue. So you need help from a trademark lawyer when you're choosing one, not just to protect a name afterwards. So the right name will depend on your business plans. If you're aiming to sell a wide range of products and services worldwide, you're going to need a different type of name to when you're just going to be selling in 1 or 2 countries a niche product. So there's lots of writing in my book and case studies about names, and I would recommend taking early advice on names, or well, on IP generally, because you can then make changes at a time when it's not too late. So we've developed a product known as the Intelli. It's a fixed price service whereby you can get very early advice for a fixed price, get strategic about your IP. And for more mature businesses, we do IP audits so that we can identify risks and opportunities, and by putting their house in order, a business is more likely to increase in value and when it comes to exit. So in terms of putting your house in order, this is something that Mr. Sano would have benefited from doing. If you remember, Mr. Sano was commissioned to produce a logo for the Tokyo Olympics. And as soon as he unveiled the logo, another designer came along and said, "This is a copy of my logo." Now, nothing would probably have come of it, except that it then emerged that his team had copied materials from the internet during a beer promotion campaign for Suntory. And this really resulted in the Tokyo Olympics Committee losing confidence, and they scrapped the logo. Now, I suspect that his team included designers who might have flouted copyright rules on the internet as students and didn't appreciate that a different sort of conduct is appropriate when you belong to a business. You see, that wouldn't be surprising because there is this popular misconception that anything you find on the internet is public domain and freely usable. So the internet makes it really easy to infringe on other people's copyright, and it's also very easy to be discovered if you're doing so. You know, there's tools and software that businesses like Getty Images use, and if they track down their images on your website, they will demand damages. Now, arguing that it was a web designer who put it there doesn't absolve you of responsibility as the site owner. So it's not just your employees you need to worry about. You also need to beware of who you engage to as freelancers and other businesses. And I would suggest having some sort of due diligence questions to ask people before you engage their services to make sure they're aware of IP issues. So we're putting together some tools to enable our clients to train themselves and their teams, and so as not to be a case study that everyone else learns from. If you want to buy, if you feel you need an IP service, we've got lots of brochures over there and business cards. Do please pick one up. If you're not sure whether or not you need an IP service, we're going to be running these regular Exploring Your IP sessions where you can come along, find out more about IP, ask questions, and get price information without obligation. And basically, we have products and services for businesses from startup stage right through to about 250 million turnover. At the moment, we just do IP, but as I explain in my book, I think that unless a company has an in-house lawyer, you're kind of expecting them to move from firm to firm for all their different needs. And there's a real risk of important issues falling between the gaps. And for this reason, we're taking on consultants shortly with expertise in different areas of law so as to provide a comprehensive business law service to our clients. And I'd be really keen to have some distribution partnership type discussions with anyone who provides complementary services that might be of interest to our clients, including lawyers at the moment who provide services that might be of interest. So do please register your interest over there if that's of interest to you. I just want to finish by saying a few words of thanks. Thank you very much, Will, for coming along this evening, and Daniel. You've made this a really good event with your presence. And thank you to Sue, Tina, and Charles and Martin and everyone else and my team at Azrights for making this event possible. And thank you too to Lucy and Joe, my publishers at Rethink Press, who've been an invaluable source of support, and to my husband and 2 daughters, without whose support I would never have been able to write this book and run a busy practice. And last but not least, thank you to each and every one of you for coming along this evening to help me celebrate the launch of my book. Thank you.